Cool. So what I want us to do is to look at the Bible in terms of, I think that in the Bible there is something supremely significant running through it that I have never seen before. And when I saw it, what was mad was I could have literally just had 1,000 Bible verses. So that's kind of what I've done. I've got like 1,000 Bible verses. And I thought probably us trying to keep up with 1,000 Bible verses would be a bit much. But we'll go into them hopefully in a minute. But what I want to realise is this, is that when I started to listen to Mark, I started just to hear things being said. I just started this little like God moment of being like, look at this. As I just started listening to it on the way to Screwfix, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm just listening to this. And then I started thinking, why? I've never heard this talk before. And I was like, so I started to pray, and then my mind went on fire, and it was like lightning bolts, and I was like, I need to chill out a little bit, otherwise I'll never get a preach out of this. And what I realised is that in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, there is a supreme theme that I just was like, how have I not seen it? Because I looked at the big picture of the Bible and done, when I was at Bible college, you look at like the big overarching things about the restoration of love, about from Genesis to Revelation is a love story between God pursuing man, and how that's all outworked up until the point in which we are restored in Revelation, this beautiful love letter. There are these other beautiful pictures of how Jesus' ministry unfolded in certain ways and times. But yet underneath all of that, I've seen something else. And I was like, why have I never seen this before? I wish I had. It would have been a much better preach on this. And it's just this very simple thing of serving. And man, when I saw it, and I hope it will be the same for you, you cannot unsee it. Because what started to happen is that God, when I started to look in Mark, is that, let's just go to Mark for a second, and you can pick any gospel, is that God arrives here on earth as baby Jesus, right? He goes into public ministry for 3 years. And please, you can go and listen to Mark for an hour and a half after this. This will be over your lunch. Is this thing starts to unravel, right? So Jesus starts his ministry. And what does his ministry look like? Because it's actually unbelievable when you start to read it and put this lens on, which is all he does is serve. And it's interesting, right? Because he starts to call people, and then he goes into public ministry. And from that day until the day he dies, all he does is serve. You can literally flip open the gospel anywhere, and he's either serving his disciples or he's serving the people. And it's really interesting because even with the Pharisees, in the correction he gives them, he's serving them to lead them into truth. And I was like, how have I never seen this? And then you can't help unsee it, and you go into these stories and you're like, can you imagine that for yourself? Like day in, day out, just serving people. Serving people that want to kill you. Serving people who are following you. Serving people that betray you. And I just started to see this, and I was like, wow, this is amazing of the Gospels, right? That in the Gospels, when you start to read, you can turn to any of the feeding of the 5,000. What's interesting is Jesus then calls his disciples. At one point, he had a couple of hundred, and then he gets down to 75, and then he gets down to 12. Do you know what he teaches those disciples to do? Just serve. And when you start to read it, if you're just like, I actually don't think I'd be up for being a disciple. We've got no bread. Hey, you guys, go find some bread. And we just leave it just there, this little throwaway line, like, go and see how much we've got. Do you know what that was? 12 people. Go out to thousands of people. Hey, how much bread have you got? Okay, I've got one over here. What about you? You got 2 fish? We've got 2 over here. Let's get a tally going. I'm going to Jerusalem, guys. I need a donkey. Can you go get me a donkey? We're going to Galilee, but I want you to go ahead of me and be waiting for me there. We're going to cross a river. Can you get me a boat? And I just started to be like, flip. I just like, how have I missed this all this time? That Jesus is here, serving people all the time. Correcting people when the disciples stopped him serving people like the kids. Let them come to me. They're like, well, he's a bit busy for this. No, because he's even here to serve the kids. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And so you can understand when I started trying my Bible verses down, I was like, this is a bit much for a Sunday morning. This could be a 10-year preach. And so I was just in the Gospels, just reading through it, man. I was just like, this is phenomenal, right? That Jesus is here and he's serving everyone. Like, serving everyone. And I was like, whoa. And then he calls these 12, and with the 12, he's saying to them, serve me or serve people. If you're not serving me, serve the people. If you're not serving the people, serve me. And I started thinking, can you imagine what that would look like for church? If we were like, I'm either serving God or I'm serving people. And so I wondered, then it got exciting. Because then I was like, I wonder what the Bible looks like as a whole picture of serving, you know. I wonder if it's in there apart from in the Gospels. And man, it is flipping exciting, right? Because you get to Genesis, what happens in Genesis? First bit of the story, anyone. What happens? Created. Who is God creating for? Us. So the beginning of the Bible is God serving people before they are even here. Creating an environment in which you and I can thrive, right? So the God of the universe, the first thing we learn about him is he can create by his word. The second thing we learn, he is creating for us. Like, really take a second and let that start to sink in a minute. The first thing we start to learn about God, that before we are even here, he is serving us by creating a place in which we can thrive. Creating a place where water can land at the top of a mountain dirty, can go through a perfect filtration system to come out the other end, and we can drink it. And now people like Buxton put that God-made water in a bottle and sell it to you for £1. And then you start to go through it. It's like these interactions God starts to have with man. You can flip anywhere. God starts to appoint people. I want you to make a temple. God then calls his people to start to create so that they can serve God by having a temple where they could worship him, and serve people so they can stand between God and man and start to create a mirror image of what it'll be like in the future for reconciliation between God and man. You start to look at Noah. What does he do? Hey, Noah built an ark. Serve. What does he do? He doesn't just make an ark. He cuts down trees. He saws them. He makes them. He mills them. He sticks them together. He gets tar. You look at Moses. What does Moses do? Serve his people. Moses has got a flipping big task, right? Go to the king of the land. Go to Pharaoh, who has all the potential to kill you, and serve me in that place by saying, let my people go. Judges, appointed to serve the people. The people aren't happy with judges, they want kings. King's purpose. What's the purpose of the king? To serve the people. David, serve the people. And it was just this mind-blowing moment of being like, how have I not seen this? And man, it started getting me really excited, because what I realised, I think the reason I'm so excited about it is that I said to God, when I became Christian, I said, God, I'm going to give you all of my life. Like, I don't want to give you 10% or 50%. Like, I'm an all-in sort of guy. If you know me, that's the sort of person I am. So, 17, I was like, God, I am all yours. And I think the reason it excites me is that I just said, God, whatever you want me, whatever you need me to do, wherever you want me to go, Lord, I will go and do it. And I think when I started to see this, I was like, it was like my heart was like, this is something unseen that I've been speaking into you that is now just here. And the reality is that I believe that each of us as followers are also called to be people who serve. And either it should fall into two categories, and it makes it easy because it's just two things to remember. Either you're going to be serving God, so like the priests. So like this morning when we're worshipping God, we are serving God, saying, God, I worship you above all things. Or God is asking us to serve people. So he's asking us to serve his church, or he's asking us to serve his community. That's why we get things like love your enemy. Because we're even called to serve our enemies. When they ask you for your coat, give them everything. Give them the shirt off your back as well. We start to see actually this picture start to unfold. I don't want to take us to a few Bible verses. I might skip some and go here and there and everywhere. But we'll stick with it. Revelation 19, 7-8. For the time has come, this is about when Jesus comes back to collect us. It says this, for the time has come for the wedding feast of the Lamb, and his bride has prepared herself. She has been given the finest of pure white linen to wear. For the fine linen represents the good deeds of the holy people. We are that bride, okay? We are the church, we are the bride. That's how we'd be described in the Bible sometimes. And so the bride can be described as the church. If you've grown up in church, you should have this literally just recall moment. Church isn't the building, it's the... Church isn't the building, it's the... Here we go. For the bride, or we can now replace it, the Christians, has prepared herself. Because actually the reality is, if you've been to a wedding or you've been married, you'll realise that there is a lot of preparation needed to turn up at the wedding. The bride in the morning might be up for 4 days beforehand, preparing herself for the wedding. Because the reality is there is a preparation taking place, right? And this preparation isn't just for Emma. When she got dressed, she had a makeup person, a hair person. She couldn't actually do her own dress up, so you have to have someone who's going to do your dress up. And what are all those people doing? They are serving Emma to prepare her for the wedding. Just like the church, we are serving each other. All of us being the bride of Christ, saying, how can I serve you to make you presentable to God when he comes again? Right? How can I serve you to make you a better person when Jesus comes back? How can I help you fulfill the God call on your life? How can I help you be prepared? How can I serve you? And it's amazing that in here we get this beautiful picture that how is this person preparing the white linen? By doing good deeds. It's doing things. Because the reality is it's good to talk a good game. Jesus didn't talk a good game, did he? He didn't teach on the theology of healing. He healed people. He didn't talk on the theology of what it looks like to be free from oppression. No, he freed people. He sat with his disciples and walked them through what it looks like to have life and life to full. Because the reality is we are called to have a season. It's right now we are not in heaven, which means we are right now in a preparation phase of preparing the bride, who is the church, who is us, for his return. So we can present ourselves like that in the fine, purest white linen to wear. He will equip us. He will make us able. But we do have a job in preparation, in serving each other, in serving our town. This is a great verse. So the Jewish leaders began harassing Jesus for breaking the Sabbath rules. But Jesus replied, my Father is always working, and so am I. So the Jewish leaders tried all the harder to find a way to kill him. For he not only broke the Sabbath, he called God his Father, thereby making himself equal with God. So Jesus explained, I tell you the truth. The Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him everything he is doing. In fact, the Father will show him how to do even greater works than healing this man. Then you will truly be astonished. This is now like a pattern for us of what is Jesus and God doing? And right here what we're getting is this. Always working, so am I. Can do, does, doing, does, doing, do. Jesus is saying, I'm here on earth right now. And literally he's saying, the Father in heaven is at work serving all the people on earth, trying to get them into a living relationship, trying to heal, deliver and comfort. And all I'm doing here on earth is doing what the Father is asking me to do, because the reality is we are a God who serves his people, who loves his people. And all you're seeing me do here right now on earth is what God the Father in heaven is doing. And I love that. My Father is always working. Like, just take a second. The God of the universe, the uncreated, the only one who is different to every single other thing in this universe that has never been created, who is different and unique, what is he doing? Always working. And when we see Jesus' life here on earth, what we're seeing is what the Father in heaven is always doing. Healing, comforting, mending the lame, sitting with the people who are oppressed and broken and kicked out, raising up disciples who are going to leave the church. And he's saying, all I'm doing, guys, here on earth is showing you what God and the Father in heaven is doing. And all he's doing is serving us. Ephesians 5, 1-2. Imitate God. Therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma. Jesus here, the ultimate sign of what it looks like to serve his people. Imitate God. And if you reflect that back on the verse we just read, all that he's doing. Therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children, live a life filled with love, following not just his teaching, but the example of Christ. We can just look at any of the stories in the New Testament and say, that is the example of what he's calling me to live out. And he gives us so many examples of what that looks like, because that is what is pleasing aroma to God. That actually the God who serves is calling us to serve. John 13:12. This is like an awesome verse on it. When he had finished, this is Jesus, washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is who I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you as an example that you should do as I have done for you. Verily true, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. In this moment here, Jesus taking on the position, the lowest position in the household, to wash the poo and the grime of the streets off of his disciples' feet, saying, I am here to serve and not be served. Because I'm setting you an example that when I'm gone pretty soon, I want you to be a people who serve and don't be served. And it's just an amazing picture of just the cascading effect of God the Father is serving Jesus. Jesus is here saying, I'm just doing what God the Father is doing. I'm serving you. He then gets to this poignant moment where he has a great opportunity to say to his disciples, I'm not bigger or better than you because I'm willing to come here and say, I love you. Therefore, I'm willing to take on the position of a servant in the household and wash your feet, because ultimately that doesn't define who I am, because I am Lord. I am great teacher. I am God. But I'm willing to say, here I am. I'm going to wash your feet because I want you to know that when I'm not here, the sort of kingdom we are building is a kingdom where we serve each other. And they would have put in that moment, look back like I did and go, well, that's all he's done since he's been here. Feeding the 5,000, crossing the lake to get to one guy who was demon possessed, going to sit with the woman at the well, going into Jerusalem to see the people, to sit with the man. All he was doing the whole time was serving. And then he gets this amazing moment where he says, because the reality is, I have come to serve and not be served. Even though out of everyone on earth, he was the one who should have been served. Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything you do. Try to please them in all the time. Not just when they are watching you. Serve them sincerely because of your reverent fear of the Lord. Work willingly at whatever you do as if you are working for the Lord rather than people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as a reward, and the master you are serving is Christ. But if you do what is wrong, you will be paid back for the wrong you have done, for God has no favourites. Even here, in addressing slavery in that culture, they're redefining what it looks like to remember that in that society we're saying, you're not serving your master. Whatever you do, you are serving Jesus. The audience we perform for is for Jesus. So if he's saying that in Colossians to the slaves, what is he going to be saying to us who are free people? That whatever we do, that wherever you find yourself, in the shop buying food, filling up your car at Tesco's, whatever we do, wherever we find ourselves, we're remembering that we serve Jesus, that he is the one we are ultimately serving. For the Son of Man has come in his glory, and all the angels with him. Then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed, my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. Here we see that even in the judgment scene, in which we are moving into our future glory, what do we see that the King of Heaven has done? Prepared for you in advance. That even there he's saying that I am here creating a place for you. You're not an afterthought, but no, since the beginning of time there has been a place prepared for you from the creation of the world. But even here God is serving us. Genesis, this is one of my favourite Bible passages. It says this, Genesis 3:21. Then God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Right here, this is just after the fall of man. The curse has been announced over Adam and Eve. They've been kicked out of the garden. All the curse has been put on them for the sin they have done. But you know what happens straight after that? This. Provision, protection, covering for their shame. That even in the kicking out of the kingdom, God is serving them by saying, I'm going to create something for you to create a covering for you. Because God is serving his people yet again because he loves them. Because the reality is, that's what's happening. And I love that in Genesis. You get to this point where you can just go home and read it, the whole of Genesis 3, and you'll be like, whoa, like, this is really serious. But then you get the idea of a loving father, right? That even though they've messed up and made this huge mistake, that he's going to literally transform the world forever until he comes and saves us. You get this moment in which God's still there as a loving father being like, guys, I'm going to make you some clothes. That he would knit them and make them clothes from the animals he created. Kill them, skin them, make clothes, so they can leave that place still being provided for by God. And literally you roll into the rest of Genesis, which is literally God trying to restore that relationship in that big picture. That's the end of the talk. And the reality is, guys, is that what I've started to realise is that the kingdom of God is about us, first of all, serving God. God, what do you want me to do? How can I serve you in spirit and in truth? And the reality is, church then is a place where we are helping prepare each other to meet Jesus. Now I want you to all to turn to your back direction. That's it, let me turn, not just your heads. Like this. And just put your hand on the person's shoulder in front of you. That's it. And because you're now facing this way. Go right there, we go. There we go. Okay, let's give him a little shoulder squeeze. Shoulder squeeze. That's it. See some people already given up. So give him a little shoulder squeeze. That's it. Okay. The reality is right now is that some of you haven't got someone's arm on your shoulder, right? Because the reality is that sometimes this is what church can look like. That some of us are receiving the massage we need, but that's really nice. You can all let go now, you can all let go. But also the reality in church is that some of us are just receiving the massage. Just sitting there loving it. I love it, it's awesome. But you know what I read in the Bible is that there is a God who serves, who tells me that I should be serving. And this is not a drive to get you serving in church, it's a drive to realise that we are created to serve. Because do you know what happens when the disciples serve? Who here's read a gospel? Yeah? Who here's read some of the most amazing writing ever in the history of humanity in the Gospels? Because you know what happens as the disciples serve Jesus and are serving? Do you know what Jesus does? He delivers them divine truth in which they write down in the Bible because they are people who are serving. Right? Come to the Acts. What happens? People are serving Jesus. What does Jesus start to do? Supernaturally, give them divine revelation. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. That truth was given to disciples who were spending their life serving him. Because the reality is we serve God and we get closer to him because he is a God who serves. What happens is we're close enough that he starts to reveal things to us. He starts to speak to us. And as a church, I want us to be a church where we're like, Meg's getting married, she's going to be beautiful, so I'm going to do whatever I can to help make her beautiful. And that means it'll cost me time, energy and love. But the reality is, I want to help make her the best she can be. And on your wedding day, the person doing your hair shouldn't be sitting there being like, oh, flipping hair, I hate doing hair, what's this all about? No, they're going, wow, I am helping this bride be made beautiful for the most special day ever in her life. How much more important it is then when we meet the King of the universe that we say, I have spent my life doing everything I possibly could to make this bride as beautiful and as splendid as she could be. That's why I stand every Sunday talking into this microphone. Because when you get to heaven, I want to be able to say, God, I did everything in my power to make this bride as beautiful as she can be, to try and get every spot and blemish out of her. Because I don't want a church where there's some people sitting here not getting a massage. I want us to be a church where we're like, if there is someone to be served, I want to be serving. Because I want to know from the kids until the oldest person in the building that you will be served, that you'll be loved, because I want to present you as a beautiful bride to Christ. Do you want to be part of a church like that? Yes. Because then what happens is we go out to the world and we can't help but do it for people. Because then we walk down the road and we're like, wow, I was at church on Sunday, you know, and I was so loved. I made me really nice coffee and my kids were really looked after. The preaching was kind of average. The worship was all right. But you know what? I feel like I've been made a bit more beautiful. And you right now can be made a bit more beautiful in this moment. And I want to serve you in this moment. Because you are a God image carrier. You might know that right now. You might not know that. But I can see it in you, therefore I want to serve you. But the reality is, I don't want us to be a church where some of us are serving and some of us are not. But I want us to start to change our attitude. Do you know what? There are people out there whose job it is to serve food. They turn up at your table, maybe you go to silver service, they turn up with a little bowl, lift it up, look a little bit miserable, put down a really fine meal. They're serving you. You know there's another person who serves you? In my house, it's my wife. She's cooked dinner. But she turns up and she puts the food on the table, happy to have cooked it. I'm happy to receive it. And then hopefully after that what happens is we can't help as a family, just like last night Emma cooked a roast dinner, we can't help but afterwards want to serve Emma. And we're like, we'll take the plates out, we'll put the dishwasher in, we'll wipe the gravy off the table and off the walls and the ceiling because Ashes Because the reality is when we start to serve, when we serve from a position of family, we can't help but want to respond and serve, right? And that's what we start to see in the Bible. God isn't here trying to get us all to be servers, silver, waitresses and waiters. He's saying what I want you to do is become people who love each other. And when you see each other, all you want to do is serve each other because you want to make each other beautiful for Jesus. And when you start to read the Bible, I challenge you to start to read it and be like, how is God serving people in this passage? And I guarantee every passage you read, you'll start seeing it. Even the prophets who are hated and killed most of them, what they're saying, all they're doing is trying to serve the people to stop them going in the wrong direction. I want us to be a church where, like, not out of any act of duty do we serve, but there's a gap in kids ministry. Why can't we all just serve in kids ministry? Isn't that hard, really? Like Jesus, he was crucified for what he believed. He was crucified in serving us. We need help him pack up and sit down. Is it so hard to get here at 8:30? It's 9 o'clock now, we've moved it. You can get here at half an hour in bed. Because the reality is that we are part of a kingdom where our Saviour, who says, do as I have done, who washes the feet of who off of their feet, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to say, can you make each other beautiful? Can you love each other? Can we have no gaps in the church? Because the reality is that this bride could be so beautiful, and a beautiful bride is attractive and it draws people in. And the reality is, I want to be someone who sees you and think, oh, isn't it awesome that I get to serve you in this way? Isn't it awesome that I get to bless you and help you be beautiful in this way? Rather than, oh, it's such a pain in the bum, isn't it? It's so hard, isn't it? The disciples, can you go find me some, see what food we've got in the crowd? They're walking around like, oh, anyone got any bread? Anyone got anything? Have you got anything? Have you got anything? Oh. Or the potential to be like, you know what, I'm going to do what Jesus asked me to do, and I'm going to serve, and I'm going to ask about bread. I'm going to go back and be like, Jesus got good news, just got 5 loaves and a few fishes. But in the midst of that, they get to see an amazing miracle, right? Because what they're willing to do is just serve and be like, I want to make this crowd beautiful. And I don't understand how it's going to happen, but I've been asked to do something, so I'm going to do it. I want us to be that sort of church. Because in the midst of that, God will reveal divine truth to us. We'll be able to see miracles in our midst as we serve and love each other. There is a place for everyone at this table. This island needs Jesus, which means all of us need to serve in some way, shape or form. Because the reality is, if we want to see 10% of the church island in this church, all of us are going to have to put our hands to the plough. We're just going to have to. But we're not doing it because we have to. We're doing it because we go, I'm part of the wedding party. I'm part of the party that's making it beautiful. And then I turn around, do you know what I realise? I'm making Meg beautiful. And I turn around, you put your hand on my shoulder, Shah. There you go. And I turn around and go, whoa, as I'm serving Meg, Shah is serving me. And Shah is making me more beautiful, and I'm making Meg more beautiful. And then Meg looks forward and she goes, oh, I'm making this person more beautiful. Or what can happen is there can be these huge gaps where we say, oh, not me, I'm all right, thank you very much. I'd rather just be here. Who wouldn't rather be here just receiving? Yeah? Who wouldn't rather just be in the beauty parlour, just laying there? But if we all do it, what happens is this beautiful thing starts to happen with these acts. And there was no need met among them. Because everyone was there, playing their part, joining in. And as a church, I want us to be that for each other, and I want to be that for our community. And I would challenge you this week to listen to Mark, an hour and a half, with that lens on going, I want to see when he serves. And you'll just be like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable.
So much for being part of Altitude Church online today. We would love it if you would consider becoming part of the Altitude family. Email us on hello@altitudechurch.com or contact us via our social media. There are loads of ways that you can give to help us further the amazing work of Altitude Church on the Isle of Wight. It would make a huge difference to us if you would join us with generosity as we work together to tell more and more people about Jesus and make an impact on this amazing island.